A lot of those older tractors don't have the rollover protective structure, or called ROPS, ROPS. Rollovers of tractors, I believe, are still the leading cause of fatalities in agriculture nationwide. So there's still a lot of tractors out there that don't have it.
I'm Becky Kiser, Hays Post Eagle Radio News reporter, and we're talking all things agriculture with Stacy Campbell, Cottonwood Extension Agent, on this episode of the Hays Post Podcast. You're always touting careful use of equipment, but some of the equipment itself is prone to being dangerous, but there are safety improvements being made all the time that people need to look for on their equipment if they can.
Yeah, it was kind of actually surprising to me when I was reading this, but there are still a lot of older tractors out there that farmers, ranchers use. A lot of it may be for mowing and just, odd chores around the farmstead and stuff. And a lot of those older tractors don't have the rollover protective structure, or called ROPS, ROPS. And one thing I learned just by reading some information that came out from K-State was that there's actually a cost share program. If you've got an older tractor that doesn't have that rollover protective structure, there's a cost share that'll pay up to 70% to get one installed. Rollovers of tractors, I believe, are still the leading cause of fatalities in agriculture nationwide. So there's still a lot of tractors out there that don't have it. I believe in the 70s, the industry started putting them on tractors, and then I think by 85 is when basically all of the tractor manufacturers just started putting them on tractors that are 20 horsepower and older. And if you have one of those on and have your seatbelt on and the tractor was to overturn, what they say, there's 99% chance you're going to be fine. I mean, you're not going to have a fatality, versus if it doesn't, there's a lot of fatalities here in Kansas. And within the last, I believe, 10 years, there's been 8 fatalities from tractor rollovers, and another 6 people were pretty seriously injured, from that. So yeah, it's something that we don't think about, but there's quite a few older tractors out there that could use that ROPS, that rollover protective structure, and there's cost share for that. And if you need information on that, contact our office. I can get you in contact with the lady at K-State that can go forward with that with you. And our number is 785-628-9430.
Is that something that the farmer rancher would retrofit themselves, or would they go to a dealer?
I don't know. It said in this article that it cost on average about $1,200 for the ROPS protective structure to buy it, I think. And I can't remember if it was talking about installing it too or not. So I'm not for sure. But there's a 70% cost share on it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Good idea for more safety protection. Yeah. Absolutely. We were talking, of course, about wheat harvest, and you said it's about 50%, 50 to 70% done in the Ellis County area. When it is completely done, there's also a little bit of concern, and maybe because of some of the rains that we've had, that there's going to be some weeds that people need to be concerned about.
Yeah, they're already popping up above the wheat stubble, especially like kochia or fireweed. And, in the past, we had a tendency, and we could get away with it by letting the weeds get bigger and most of them come up, if you will, and then spray. We can't do that anymore because of all of the resistance, herbicide resistance that our weeds have developed. So it's best to go ahead and pull the trigger as soon as you can and spray your wheat stubble if you're going to, leave it in no-till or, not work the ground. Ideally, those weeds, you'd want them to 4 to 6 inches tall, but I know the kochia is already taller than that. But if you just wait and think I'm going to let some more weeds come up, they're just the kochia and other weeds are just going to get bigger, and it's going to be a bigger problem. Also, highly encouraged to use a herbicide that's going to have some residual. In other words, has some activity in the soil that can, get other weeds. It has some persistence. So recommended to do it as soon as possible and use herbicides. And that's another key word, not just one, a combination, and preferably, 1 or 2 have some residual in it as well. Yeah.
And you have some suggestions on what people might be able to use?
Yep, we do. We have a weed control specialist that put some information out on that. That was my newspaper article last week. So you could actually go to the Hayes Post in the search post and put my name in there, and it'll come up. And we've got that information, too, at the office if you want to give me a call at, again, 628-9430. But, yeah, you can go to Hayes Post and search my name.
Glad,
and it'll come up.
Glad we're helping out there. And speaking of your column, you have one coming up talking about, is it chinch bugs? Am I saying that right?
Chinch bugs.
Chinch bugs. Those are kind of ugly little critters, aren't they?
Yeah, that's an interesting insect. Probably a dozen or 15 years ago, it was an eastern Kansas insect that we didn't have to worry about, at least the eastern third of the state. Well, I don't know. They've come over west. They've moved west. And farmers have been fighting them, I think, for a good 10 years now. What happens is wheat actually is a good host quite a few insects while it's growing. They're not really doing much damage, but they are doing a little bit of feeding. And chinch bugs are one of them that are in the wheat. And then as the wheat matures, starts drying down, especially at harvest time, those chinch bugs, it's the immatures that are not adults yet. They do not have wings. They're in the wheat. They're feeding on the wheat some. Once that wheat dries down and gets harvested, they move. They need some new plants, some green tissue to survive on. And if you have a grain sorghum or sorghum Sudan feed hay close to those wheat fields, they've been moving over into those fields and not destroying the whole field, but they will, if the sorghum plants are pretty small, and they usually are, enough of them get on the plants, they will take out several rows of the grain sorghum, maybe 2 or 4 or 6 or 10 or 12 or even 20 rows sometimes. So they've just been a problem. Farmers know about it. You can spray for them, but they're down in that whorl of the plant, kind of tucked down in the leaf, so they're hard to kill. By now, probably most of our grain sorghum is getting big enough it's not an issue. Also, the chinch bugs, their life cycle, there should be kind of maturing and done here in another week or two. But the other thing that we were talking about, or there's some information coming out, is there's another bug called a false chinch bug. And just try not to mistake it for the chinch bug. There is some differences in the appearance of it. The false chinch bug is more of a brown bug. The actual chinch bug itself, once it's mature, it's got a white pattern on its back that kind of the wings are on its back and make this white pattern that's kind of a cross shape. So just to not mistake them, chinch bugs also feed on the plants, but it takes I'm sorry, the false chinch bugs also can feed on the plants, but it usually takes a lot more of them. Just kind of there's a difference between it, and it's kind of good that farmers maybe recognize that. There will be some information coming out on that.
Okay, we'll look for that as well. And then you had one other critter that we were going to talk about that is specific to corn.
Yeah.
And we've got some corn growers around here. This is the tar spot.
Right. And it's just, so far it's been located in 4 northeast Kansas counties. It's a new disease. Just kind of giving guys a heads up that unfortunately that may be something that, it probably will kind of keep progressing this way. I don't think it's going to happen this year, but that's a new disease to corn that has been here in Kansas for 2 or 3 years now. And unfortunately, it'll probably keep going west. So just kind of an FYI that's something, if guys are growing corn, that they're going to kind of need to keep an eye on down the road eventually, probably. And mentioning corn, and this is more for probably irrigated corn like down in Barton County, it's going to be time to be scouting the corn, and they do, and looking at possibly applying some fungicides if there's some different foliar leaf diseases such as southern rust, gray leaf spot, those things. And actually, the irrigated corn guys usually have a crop consultant that's doing that, but it's getting to be about that time to where they're really scouting the irrigated corn pretty tough. That'd be more Barton County, and we'll be probably looking at some fungicide applications.
You talk about the some of these bugs and some of these diseases that are starting out in the eastern part of Kansas counties and then moving west. Is that because of more moisture in the east? Why move east to west? I'm curious.
I don't know. That's a good question. Well, okay, on the tar spot, and I really haven't kept up with that real well since we still, I guess, got some time before it's probably here. Obviously, usually the diseases are definitely a factor of temperature and humidity. Also, if you're kind of growing continuous crop corn, that's where you really have trouble, because a lot of those diseases are kind of harbored in the old leaves and stuff that are in the field. So, and we don't really grow a lot of continuous corn here. So, but in areas where they do, that's one of the problems when we do continuous cropping. As far as the chinch bugs, I don't know that anybody's ever really kind of figured out why they've progressed further west like they have, but they have. Yeah,
they like it out here like we do.
I guess so. They've always been around. They're more of a problem. They like grass. Grass is their preferred host. So they can even sometimes hit golf courses and turf farms and even lawns. And they kind of overwinter in some of our native grasses and stuff. I guess years ago in eastern Kansas, they've done some work where they would kind of burn the perennial grasses in the fall and stuff to try to, not give those chinch bugs a place to overwinter. But I don't think that was very effective. But anyway, it's an insect that's just progressed further west and kind of given the farmers a fit. Like I say, they don't take out the whole field. They take out some rows. Guys will probably go back and replant some of those plants. And, I might tell them, they could probably plant now, but here in another week or two, the chinch bugs should pretty much have kind of matured and run their cycle, if you will.